Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Reality radio for a really great future. We're talking real money.
Welcome to Talking Real Money. I'm Don McDonald. We're back to the plain old boring audio version of the podcast. Sorry about that. Yeah, just me. Just me too. No Tom today, because today being Friday, and due to the fact that we have so many of them, is Q&A Friday once again. I probably need to get through, I'm not going to get through that many today, but there are probably 10 to 12 questions backed up, and it would be a really long podcast to try to get them all in. But I'm going to try and get as many in. We love the fact that you're sending us questions. It's awesome. The number here is 855-935-TALK. You can call that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Really easy. And leave your question, but please leave as much detail as you can. And I'll edit it if it's too much stuff. You can also leave your questions at talkingrealmoney.com. You can type them, which is good. Or if you have a mic with your computer, oh, it's so nice when you speak them, like this gentleman did.
Hey guys, Kyle from Missouri. My situation is that I have just entered into a contract for deed in the last year, sometime last fall, a contract for deed arrangement with my mother to buy her old house and 20 acres out in the country here in south central Missouri. I'm getting ready to refinance. I'm thinking I'm going to try to do that sometime in the next couple of months or in the next few months. And she didn't, to cash her out, go ahead and get her money, and I'll just pay the bank. She's going to get about $50,000 ish. I can't remember the exact number. My question is, what does she need to do to transfer that money into some kind of a retirement fund? Because she doesn't have very much of a retirement account value right now. Her 401k is only worth about, I think, $25,000 or something, and she's getting close to retirement age, so she's not going to have much. So this property sale will basically, double or triple her retirement account value, close to triple it. Any advice you have would be great. Thanks.
Well, you're not going to like my answer much. Although I think you realize the situation. You pretty clearly stated that she's not going to retire with a lot. So basically, she's going to be looking at Social Security, assuming she has no other pension and you didn't mention it. Social Security plus a minor little stipend from this $75,000. If she invested this $75,000 in a way that we would suggest, which would be a portion of it in stocks, in a diversified global portfolio of stocks like the Vanguard Total Market Index, Total World, and some high-quality intermediate-term bonds to reduce the volatility, I would imagine that she could probably generate from that portfolio, without touching the principal, about $250 a month. I know, that's not much. This is a case where an extra $100 a month could make a huge difference, right? So a couple ways to look at it. She could take the $250 a month and then every year take out an additional $1,200 and put that away to get her to $350 a month. Or the other option, because we don't know how that'll work out, and there's some uncertainty involved in that. And this is not something we suggest very often, but in special circumstances, it probably makes sense to look at an immediate annuity with a highly rated insurance company. Make sure they're A-rated or better, and shop around and find the best income, life only. She has no one else dependent upon her. So a life-only annuity. And I went and did some preliminary looking around and came up with about $360 a month as the amount she could take out. But remember, the $75,000 will be gone. Another option might be to take a lower lifelong income, for example, put $60,000 away, get a smaller income, and keep $15,000 in an emergency pool in a high-yield savings account or something similar, so that she has, in an emergency, has access to more money for those unexpected bills. So there's a couple of ways to do it. None of them are pretty, but the point is to keep her as comfortable as possible for the rest of her life. And it sounds like you're doing a lot in pursuit of that goal. So I commend you for working all this out. And I assume she's going to get to stay on the farm. So that's a good thing. Thanks so much for your question. And remember, call them in, 855-935-TALK. Send them in, talkingrealmoney.com. And let's take yet another that was spoken at talkingrealmoney.com.
Hey, guys. I've been looking at moving some money into Vanguard. And one of the things I'm trying to understand is, why would I choose a bond ETF versus the Admiral shares? They've got the different expense ratios, etc. But I'm just not sure on under which circumstances the ETF is the better choice over the Admiral shares. So thanks. Love you guys. And can't wait to hear you respond.
That is a most excellent question, a really good question, because we talk about the tax differences between mutual funds. But when we talk about that, we're talking about the tax differences when it comes to capital gains. You don't have capital gains due along the way, realized capital gains on an ETF. You don't pay them until you sell, and then you pay them on the appreciated amount. Same thing's going to apply to gains from an ETF or losses, but you don't get a lot of capital gains or losses from short, intermediate term bonds or just an average bond portfolio. So what the difference is pretty negligible. The difference is the fees. The Vanguard Total Bond Index Mutual Fund, which is VBTLX, has an expense ratio. It's almost laughingly small at 0.05%. In other words, $5 on $1,000. The BND, which is the same fund as an ETF, has an expense ratio of 0.035 or $3.50 per thousand a year. So on a $100,000 portfolio, it's going to be the difference of about $150 a year. So if you're in the BND, it's not anything to scoff at, but the difference is going to be about $150. That is the argument. That's it for the ETF. That's all there is. There you have it. $150 a year on $100,000. 855-935-TALK. That's the phone number. Just leave your question like this.
Hi, Don and Tom. Just started listening to your show. Had a quick question about some early retirement. I am currently 30 years old, looking to retire at about 55, and I had met with a financial advisor from a different firm recently, and they naturally recommended a variable or universal life policy to kind of cover the distance or the time period between 55 and whenever I start pulling from my 401k Roth IRA accounts. I was just curious what you guys recommend to cover for that time period. Thank you.
Oh, this is not an investment advisor by any means. This is a product peddler, probably only an insurance product salesperson holding themselves out to be a financial advisor. When they're really not. They're an insurance salesperson. It's just that when you call yourself an insurance salesperson, people are immediately suspicious. And the pitch, you were so wise to call. What they pitched is utterly and completely, absolutely, no doubt about it, irresponsible. If that's what they came up with, they just said, hey, you should get yourself an annuity or a universal life policy that will pay me a huge commission that I do not have to disclose to you. Ha, 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 ha. I am going to do really well on this deal. That's exactly what's going on. This is a terrible piece of advice. Just awful. What needs to happen is you need to talk to somebody about what you want this money to do, what you need from it in the future, and how much risk you can take in doing that. Because I can assure you, you are not going to make very much money on a variable annuity or a universal life policy. After all the fees and expenses and everything, even if you invested in the stock market, you're probably going to chop off 3% of whatever the market's return is with all their fees. Maybe more. And that stupid little benefit they tell you of tax deferral, well, if you haven't maxed out your 401k or your IRA, this is silly. You should be maxing those out. Max out your 401, max out your IRA. At least in an IRA, a regular IRA or 401k, the money you put in, you get a tax deduction for putting it in. You don't get that from an annuity. And it tax defers. And you can leave it there for a very long time. And like the annuity, but you get all of the return of the investments. And like an annuity, both of them get taxed as regular income when you take it out. If you've already maxed out all your retirement plans at work and you want to be in the market and make the returns of the market like a variable annuity would do, well, then you'd be better off buying into an index fund or an index ETF like the Vanguard Total World VT, because there will be tax deferral. All you're going to have to pay taxes on are the dividends along the way. The capital gains are going to defer and defer and defer and defer until you sell the shares. And then when you do, you're going to be taxed at the capital gains rate, which today, for most people, is 20%, not your tax rate. So, or less, 20% or less. So this is terrible advice. This is not a financial advisor. You need to steer clear of this person. I bet there's somebody who is known to you somehow, and they're really nice, really a nice person. Have you ever met a good salesperson who wasn't a really nice person? You need something new and different. You need better advice. You need the advice of a true fiduciary advisor, somebody who is required by law to act in your best interests 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you want to learn more about finding a fiduciary, go to talkingrealmoney.com/help. We have tons of information there. Even a survey you can give, or I guess it's a survey, one sheet that you can give to an advisor and say, please fill this out. A fiduciary would gladly fill it out. Not always a fiduciary will not. They'll say they can't, when in fact they could if they wanted to. 855-935-TALK. That's our number. Let's take another phone call, shall we?
Hi. I just wanted to know if, considering refinancing my mortgage, is there a way that you can guarantee that you won't be sold to Wells Fargo? Or is there a way to do that just to ensure that Wells Fargo will never be part of your life? Anyway, thanks for answering my question, hopefully.
I'm sorry. Your question cracks me up. It's probably somehow related to you probably heard me mention that I refinanced my mortgage, or actually financed a new one on a new house. And shortly after doing so, my mortgage was sold to Wells Fargo for servicing. just as the mortgage on my other home was sold to Mr. Cooper for servicing. I had no choice in the matter. None whatsoever. I haven't had any bad luck with Wells Fargo. I have to say that. I have no bad luck. I've had no bad luck with them. They've been a fine mortgage servicer. They take my payments and they seem to pay out my escrow, unlike Tom's mortgage company, who Bank of America kind of forgot to pay their escrow. But I haven't had that problem. Can you specify? No. The only way you might be able to specify is if you find a lender who actually services their own paper and intends to do so. And in this day and age, I can't even think of one that does, because everybody reserves the right to sell the paper to somebody else for servicing. No, you just have to live with it. You just make your payments and keep an eye on them. And it is wise to keep an eye on them, as Tom learned, because occasionally they mess up. And so you want to make sure that they are paying your property taxes, your insurance, things like that. So keep up on them. But no, great question, though. That was really fun. Let's do one more question because we're getting a little long here. I don't want to make these podcasts too long, but let's take one more question.
Say, I've been listening to your show. Your recommendation is if you have a house, you'd sell it during this crazy times that we're in. I have a house that it needs quite a bit more work, but I was curious as to if your recommendation would be to sell it unfinished or try to hang on to it and get more of the work done. It's basically most of the wiring, interior work, no sheetrock, no insulation. It's got a new roof. I need to run services down to the new well that I had dug and that sort of thing. So there's quite a bit that needs to be done. So I just wondered what your recommendation might be in something like that. And I don't like to answer any of these ads for people when they call you up or send mail. We buy houses now and all that. It's just, I don't. So who do you think I should do business with if I do try to sell it in the shape that it's in? Thanks.
That is a fascinating question. And it just so happens that it's one for which I have a semblance of an answer just from working with, talking with, dealing with tons and tons of people in the real estate business. And in an environment like we have today, it is a seller's market for as long as it lasts. We don't know how long that will be. I cannot possibly predict that. But it is a good market in which to sell a property. So buyers are buying a lot of pieces as is. And if you had told me that it just needed an updated kitchen or an updated bathroom or something like that, I would say sell it as is. Maybe even, ask a little more money and give them an allowance back to do some remodeling. But in this case, this sounds like a house that would be very difficult to sell as is. And if you're not capable of at least getting in the basic finish, the sheetrock, hooked up to service, the electrical done, insulation in so that people can walk in and see four walls and a floor and turn on the water and see that it works somewhere. You might leave some of the finishes out and tell them that they can find a good contract. This is what I was going to suggest. Find a reputable contractor, somebody your friends and relatives all think very highly of, and get this person in there to help you speed this up, because who knows how long this market's going to last. You need to move it along. You can also then use that contractor as a resource to say, we can, for this price, have this built to your specs, have this finished to your specs. So somebody is in essence buying a new house, which is very attractive. An older house on a piece of property, though, that it's got good bones, but it's going to be gorgeous and done to their tastes. It's tough. It's really, really tough to build to somebody else's tastes. And that's why if it just needed refinishing, I'd wait. I'd just sell it. I wouldn't wait, I should say. I would just sell it. But given that it needs this much work, I'd find a good contractor to help you at least get it partially finished out, and then maybe work a deal with that contractor where they do the work to help you sell it completely finished out, like somebody's buying a new house. It's the best thing I can think of, but I think you should try to find a way to move it along so that you can sell into a very, very robust market. Thanks for all your good questions, your calls, your written questions, your spoken questions at TalkingRealMoney.com. Again, our phone number is 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. If you need more help than we can give in this very abbreviated time we have together, we have always, for years, made this offer. We will provide you with one of our 100% fiduciary, non-commissioned advisors to meet with you online, on the phone, maybe someday in person again. We'll be doing that soon, I'm sure. And they'll give you some time to help you understand how the money might better be invested for your retirement, that get a second opinion, or go through that pile of statements you have sitting on the kitchen table and let us help you find the error of your ways, get you on a better path, get you started with a plan. Even if you intend to do it all yourself, we want to make sure everybody does it right and doesn't get taken advantage of. If you have a broker and you think you're perfectly happy with them, great. What does it hurt? Really, what does it hurt to get a second opinion when you know you won't be sold anything? See, that's the key. We promise, Tom and I both promise you, that you will not be subject to a high-pressure sales pitch. You will be provided with real, actionable help. And we've been saying that for years, and no one's ever called us on the show. Remember, we're live. We don't even really screen the calls. We just get your name. And no one's ever called and said, Don, your advisors tried to sell me something. No one's ever said it. So go to vestory.com, VESTORY.com. That's our website. And we help people all over the country. As a matter of fact, we're now associated with the Pella Capital. So we literally have offices around the country. So we can help you wherever you are. We do most of it online anyway. So go to vestory.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, set up an appointment. We will meet with you when it's convenient for you. And please tell your friends about the podcast, tell your family about the podcast, tell your enemies if you're speaking to them about the podcast. If you really like what you hear, go to Apple Podcasts. And I know you may not be listening on Apple Podcasts, but it helps us. Go there and write a review because it helps us build the audience. And we really, truly appreciate you being there. I'm Don McDonald, and I just hang out talking real money.
Talking Real Money. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for educational and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. Providing personalized financial planning or investing advice takes time, so please consult with a really good fee-only fiduciary investment, tax, or legal advisor. We know a good one. Investing must always involve risk. In other words, you can and probably will lose money at times. Also, as much as you want it, no one can accurately, consistently predict the future. So past performance doesn't tell you a darn thing about what the future will bring. Unlike many other programs that say something similar, Talking Real Money is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Vestory, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and disclosures. That's a wrap.